Yemen, Ansarullah, they have been carrying out strikes on Israel continuously for the past 14 months almost, ever since Al-Aqsa flood started. And they haven't stopped despite two massive attacks coming from Israel inside of Yemen. They carried out missile attacks on Israel, ballistic missiles, including a Palestine 2 hypersonic missile on central Israel that they said it was successful. Israel declared that they took down the missile. They intercepted it with an Arrow 3 missile. The Arrow system of Israel is considered to be a very advanced system. It's a hypersonic exo-atmospheric system, and each missile costs up to $3 million. The missiles that are used to intercept one missile, imagine. But Israel is still worried about these attacks. Firstly, there is a clear image here in front of us. Hezbollah have been out of the picture. I mean, the one response that they had following the Israeli breaches of the ceasefire in Lebanon that led Hezbollah to only have one attack on Israel indicates that Hezbollah are more interested in preserving the ceasefire rather than doing anything else. Clearly, Hezbollah want the ceasefire to succeed and are not pushed to respond to the Israeli provocations when it comes to Lebanon. This situation will most likely return them to the same position they were in before the 8th of October, which was the day that they started to participate in Al-Aqsa flood, the 8th of October 2023. And that is indeed a loss for Israel, and they are clearly sending messages that they are not going to get dragged into war. They don't want it. But that's not the case when it comes to the Yemeni front. Of course, in Gaza, every single day, the Palestinian resistance humiliates genocide forces despite all of the massacres that they're conducting against the population. The Palestinian resistance still publishing evidence and footage daily when it comes to them attacking the genocide forces inside of Gaza, both in the north, in the south, and in some parts of central Gaza, especially the Netzarim line, which Israel is trying to establish as a main base, even for future agreements when it comes to Gaza, to ensure there is a definite split between the north and the south. However, Yemen is now outside of Palestine, the most active front. And that is something problematic for Israel. Israel is talking more about the need to respond to Yemen. More and more talks coming in the Israeli media now that that's it. We need to prepare to attack in Yemen. One of these reports in Koreshon said, after the ballistic missile, reports of preparations for an Israeli attack in Yemen. And also the Jerusalem Post said Israel is likely to finally respond to Yemen's Houthis post has learned. Now, mind you, when it comes to Ansarullah, more well known as the Houthis, they are adding Syria in their statements. So they're saying following the aggression in Gaza and in Syria. So they're clearly interested in all of the causes, not just Gaza, but the main thing that they are carrying out their operations based upon is Gaza. So they said, we will not stop until the genocide ends and the siege is lifted. That's something that they added, unlike Hezbollah previously, who only said, well, the war needs to stop, the genocide needs to stop for us to stop the operations, up until things escalated to a full-blown war level where Hezbollah started to have different calculations when it comes to the war. Now, Ansarullah are not phased. They're saying we're not going to be deterred by the US and America and the Israeli attacks and aggressions against Yemen. And that's part of the problem for Israel and the US and the British forces participating as well through the genocide coalition against Yemen, is the fact that none of their attacks seem to be very effective. Israel's attacks on Yemen are attacks on the oil fields, something that will cause big fires and try and intimidate and send a message to Yemen and to, the countries in the region. However, on the ground, when it comes to Yemen, Yemen is a very mountainous area. It's a very challenging environment to deal with. They hide their arsenal under mountainous terrain. That's something very difficult to deal with. I mean, the United States went to Afghanistan for 20 years and they failed. We have a similar situation in terms of the landscape or the mountainous areas inside of Yemen. That's something very problematic. And another big problem that they face with Yemen is the fact that this is a country that is extremely supportive of the Palestinian cause. They go out in their millions every single week in Yemen to show solidarity when it comes to Gaza. So you're talking about a population that is almost fully in supportive of Palestine, and you're talking about challenges when it comes to the geography and the challenges of the strategic weapons when it comes to Yemen. Yemen's strategic weapons are the ballistic missiles, the cruise missiles, and the drones. And all of them can be launched individually from wide and different places inside of Yemeni territories. And no one would really be able to do anything against them. The only thing that some of the genocide forces can do in Yemen is only target, for example, the launchers after they have detected an attack, or if they have this intel, very specific intel about certain locations. Even then, you would need very advanced missiles to intercept, missiles that are deeply hidden into the ground inside of Yemen. And another thing here is the route. Now, the route that Yemen is using, and that's also being confirmed now from Israel, Egypt is trying to deny it, but the route that they are using for their drones, not ballistic missiles, is through the Sinai Peninsula. So what they're doing is they're crossing the Red Sea, going to Sinai, moving east, then north, then moving west, northwest, and then moving east when they reach the coast from next to Gaza, and then attacking Israel. That's something problematic for Israel, and that's also an indication that Egypt is not doing anything to intercept these drones or missiles coming from Ansarullah, unlike what Jordan did when Iran attacked Israel. And Egypt, although they deny the fact that Yemeni drones are going through Egypt to Israel, they stated before that we will not be taking down anything from Egypt. We will not intercept anything on behalf of Israel, although Egypt is a side that is viewed to be acting diplomatically for the majority of the time. They do have their own interests, and clearly they're in no rush to protect Israel from any attacks coming from Yemen, especially seeing as we're talking about drones in the case of Egypt, which are already very problematic to intercept even when it comes to Israel itself. That's why there's a very high success rate. The other day, over a week ago, Ansarullah directly targeted a place inside of Tel Aviv with a drone. And in many cases, they have more success rate than they do with the missiles that they launch on Israel, including the hypersonic missiles. Yet, despite all of that, Israel is looking to carry out an operation against Yemen. Even if it wouldn't be that effective, they just want to show that we're not going to stop. Because so far, Israel knew, well, we attack them, they attack back. We attack them, they might pause for a bit, and then they attack back. They have had a similar situation with Iran, but with Iran, the delay gets longer and longer. But that doesn't mean that they forgot about Iran. At the same time that we're talking about the Israeli preparation to attack in Yemen, they're also still talking about attacking Iran. Many people in Israel, including the war criminal himself, Gallant, is saying that this is a window. Now we have a window to act against Iran. We're talking about a period where there is a transition in the US administration. So there's a vulnerability here. And previously, Benjamin Netanyahu even sacked him when they had elections inside of the United States of America. They are viewing Iran and Israel and are portraying Iran, as they mostly do, as the head of the snake, the head of the problem when it comes to everything. In Israel, there are more talks now that, well, it was Iran who started October the 7th attack. It was Iran who supported Hezbollah. It was Iran who's enabling Yemen. Iran is the main problem, and we need to get rid of them. And if we don't get rid of them, and we don't carry out a decisive strike against Iran, a very harsh strike against them, they might actually go and fight back, or they will launch their attack on us, which is being delayed. Now, previously, well, we heard the statements coming from Iran. Iran said, unimaginable response, unprecedented blow. It will be bigger than all of the previous attacks, and it will teach them a lesson. A lot of militant talk came from Iran when it comes to Operation True Promise 3 that we are yet to see. So between True Promise 1 and True Promise 2, it took Iran almost half a year. So far, it's been, 2.5 months approximately following the Israeli attack on Iran. Now, are they going to give it several more months? Are we going to see a similar delay? Especially with the talks coming from Israel about a preparation to attack in Iran, and a hostile tone coming from Donald Trump himself, who will come into office in the end of January 2025. So there are many questions surrounding Iran. What are they exactly waiting for? Are they waiting to receive a big blow? Are they not realizing that Israel is attacking? Israel is attacking in Gaza. Israel is still attacking despite the ceasefire in Lebanon. Israel is attacking in Syria. They are threatening Jordan. They're threatening Yemen. And they're threatening Iran. And previously, Iran was criticized as Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah was assassinated. Many people were saying, well, if you carried out a retaliatory strike against Israel before, we might have a different situation now. But because you did not respond early to Israel, then they escalated and they started to target more senior figures when it comes to the Lebanese resistance and the Palestinian resistance. Of course, you've had the massive provocation when it comes to the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, one day after the inauguration of President Masoud Pezeshkian. These are big questions. Now, the bigger questions are, is this all part of a greater deal that we're not seeing? The Iranian withdrawal from Syria, the Russian withdrawal from Syria, the Hezbollah position when it comes to persisting or insisting on having this ceasefire despite Israeli breaches, or is this a tactical move? Is it a temporary tactical move? Previously, based on the pattern of behavior coming from Iran, they responded. They said, and they responded in April. No one was expecting Iran to hit Israel, and they did. In True Promise 2, people were saying, where are you? It was about 3.5 months to 4 months between True Promise 1, True Promise 2. No, not 4 months. It was not 6 months. It was the Israeli attack on the 1st of October. But it came afterwards. That indicates that when Iran does indeed promise to do something, they will. This is what we've seen so far. However, based on certain moves, there are clearly certain understandings that we haven't seen so far. Because at the end of the day, Iran is looking to have a fresh deal when it comes to their nuclear program with the United States, one that they had initially signed with Barack Obama, and then Donald Trump completely got rid of it after he came to power. And they constantly negotiate with the United States. And when the Iraqi resistance started to target US bases inside of Iraq, it was a deal between Iran and the United States to lower the scale or eliminate these attacks to a level where some of the Iraqi movements started to say that we are pausing our attacks inside of Iraqi territories for now, but they continued to attack Israel in many cases in coordination with Yemen. Now, there are two lines here, two lines of thought. The first one is, no, we're looking to reach a settlement in the region. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to escalate. That's the first line of thinking. There has been a settlement done, agreed upon with the big powers, including Russia and the United States. Iran would be involved as well, and other regional players too. Yet, despite that, there are indications on the ground that no, things are actually escalating. When we talk about Israel, which is the US base in the West Asian region, they are constantly expanding with more and more recklessness, increasing their genocide in Gaza and increasing their risk and threat to regional countries. And based on what they've done so far, well, nothing seems hopeful. You have a government led by a war criminal, a psychopathic war criminal, and they are on a mission. Now, this is a very sensitive period. There's a transition in the United States. There are threats, there are warnings, and things are moving really fast. So it could either go to a path of more escalation or a temporary pause followed by a bigger escalation, or we're looking at a settlement that is planned between big players that doesn't include only West Asia, but also includes Ukraine. But despite all of the talks about this potential deal, things are very much heated, and there are even still talks about World War III.